Well, so you mess up the tongue, and then you burn your asparagus. We're on to part 2 of the wolf and bear bench. I am really happy with how the bear turned out. If you haven't watched it, just click back and you can watch the part 1 of the wolf bear bench, but this is part 2. So part 2, I am looking to slab out the benches, and I'm gonna take a big log, hook up my Alaskan mill. I'll show you how I do that, and then I'm gonna try to make this wolf a little bit different. It's still gonna be like the bear, only the front torso, and but this time I want the wolf to have like a snarl, like a really fierce look. This wolf is like, what are you doing here? Or you know, snarling, face down, claws digging in, really capture a fierce look to it. And you know, I am not super comfortable in carving wolves, and I never have been. So this one I'm really gonna try to get it anatomically correct, and also like work on a growl, you know, like really scrunch the nose and show the teeth, and kind of have that like dog like look to it, where it's kind of got its tongue out and it's ready to you know, attack or hunt. And I'll definitely be hitting the airbrush afterwards. I think that I want to give this a little more color than the bear, and I think those two will contrast really well. And the tree that I have for the benches is super nice. It is old growth western red cedar. It has like a little swirl, some sort of like growth, not malfunction, but it had a weird growth pattern, so you know, mills can't use it. I was able to salvage it. I think once I cut it inside, it's gonna have a really cool like color change in the middle of it. So I'll set up that on the Alaskan mill. We'll carve the wolf, and we'll see how it goes. And hopefully by the end of this video, this bench will be done, and we'll be ready to go. So let's get to the shop. Now I'm going to start milling the bench. So over here, I got this big log here. It's a little bit too big for my mill, so I'm gonna take a piece off right there and then run a line right across the center and kind of just go with that length. Okay, so I got the big saw set up. I'm gonna put the Alaskan mill on it. And what I do, I don't know if this is right or not, but take a 2x10 or 8, level it out, and then I'm gonna run it from the top to the bottom all the way down. Put a couple screws in so it doesn't move, and then just use that as your guide, and then you can kind of base it off every 2 inches, and then you can get quite nice slabs. Sorry about that, I rooked it and deleted the footage, but now I have the planks milled perfectly, and I use the Makita polisher with a 7-inch disc, Velcro sanding, using 60 to 120 to 220 grit. It really buffs out these planks beautifully. Now I get the wolf stood up, and it's time to detail, so I use my Echo 2511 with a Canon 8-inch dime tip bar. So right now I have put it off long enough, and I am not excited about doing this, because I know how to do it, but it's like one of those things where your brain is just like, ah. So I gotta cut this out and fill it in. So I'm gonna have to like cut a triangle and then put a triangle in and just fit it until it's perfect. And it's gonna be a tough son of a bitch to do. And same with this. So I'll cut a wedge into it and then fill it with a glue. I don't know. I know it's easy, but I just hate doing this kind of stuff, so I don't know. We'll just have to give her and see how it goes. After many attempts, I finally got it wedged in. I used a mallet to kind of push it right in, let it sit, and then COVID-19 happened, and I had to take a month off. I was so hyped to get back to my tools in the piece. I started on the Makita finger sander. I was on to the Dremels, but then it just wasn't flowing right. Well, got it. So sometimes you mess up. So you can see I took this chunk of the tongue out, I hollowed it out too much, and now I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do here. Push the tongue back, thin it down, give it more of an underjaw and show like underneath the tongue more, which sucks. Oh, now I'm smelling my asparagus, which is fully burnt. Let's see what that looks like. That's what happens when you forget to... Lunch is served. Well, so you mess up the tongue, and then you burn your asparagus. So I will put this out, and I am going to make the tongue a lot skinnier and just push it back, give more teeth. Kind of sucks. So when I first noticed that the eyes were looking down, I wanted to give it a looking up kind of feel. So I'm gonna dig up into here and cut this part out, and then kind of give it that inverted feel, even though that might not be how the eye actually works. Once I do that, then I can give it the line, and then it'll really give it the idea that it's looking up. I pretty much use that bit for all my final detailing: fingers, nails, eyes, teeth. It really works. So for the eyes, I'm going to do a half circle and then a half circle for the pupil, and that gives it the idea of it's looking up. Then I go into the Makita finger sander, which I find to be the best for all my detailing, and then when you flap sand it down, it kind of gives it a softer tone. I'll move into the airbrush, then I'm going to use rattle cans, and we're going to just stain it up. And of course, now we run into another problem. The bench is too low. So what I did was I took 2x8s, I glued and screwed them together. I used Gorilla Glue, I left them, I recarved it, painted it black, and it's good as new. It'll last forever, and it actually puts some air underneath the base and will allow for water to drain out and not be a problem. I use the Mampa gouge to kind of punch in the holes for notches in the benches, which works really good. It's one of my favorite things Mampa makes. Then I just do a final polish on these two beautiful cedar slabs. I do the base first, and then I come in with the back. I line it up, I get the angle right, which takes always some jimmy rigging, but at the same time, once it's in, it's set in stone, and then I use 2 big lag bolts for the back, and that's going to hold up enough to keep you solid and safe, and anyone who sits in one of these big benches. And as you can tell, these cedar slabs just turned out beautiful. So stoked on them. And now I'll get a couple of coats of stain on it just to protect it a bit extra, and get ready to travel to Enderby with it. To be honest, I'm happy with how it turned out. And you know, when you run into problems with cracks, you can always fix them. Not all the time, but most of the time you can fix a lot of stuff. So, you know, you cut the wedge, you fill it, you use wood filler, and then you carve it like it was never there. Even if you have a crack and you know you're gonna run into a crack, for me, I always just think, imagine it's not there. I remember Ken Tynan told me, just imagine it's not there, imagine the crack's not there, and it will, and then fix it when you have it carved, so it's less work and less finishing. Because if you put in a wedge and you still have a lot of stuff to do, it's gonna be harder to, you'll have to refill it and redo it just in case you keep pushing. So get it as far as you can, then fill it, then let it sit, then epoxy it, or, you know, I'm not the best, I'm not the worst. And that's it. I mean, I don't know, I feel like I got to keep saying that because I'm a bit nervous that it's you know, maybe we'll be judged, or who knows, because I know there's a lot better carvers, but hey, I'm just doing it. So if they want to do it, awesome, I'll watch their videos too. So thank you. Give me a like, give me a subscribe. Next week, Jamie Cudmore, we are doing a animal
Totem mini version, and hopefully I'll be able to talk about layout, design, execution, and kind of fitting in animals to get the animal stack right so it looks visually stimulating. That's it. See you later.